All right. I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of All About Balance. We have Brighton's answer to Elvis Presley with us today. So, Robbie, how's it going?
It's going very well, Harry.
Good. 10 man Ian O'Neill of Severe MMA podcast. How's it going?
It's going great, Harry. Thanks for having me.
And Lee, hello. We'll dive straight into news. The easy bit of news to cover is Francis Ngannou supposedly is not active enough, and an interim heavyweight title fight has been brought about between Cyril Gane and Derek Lewis. Immediate thoughts, Ian?
I'm kind of immune to these kind of situations with the UFC right now. Yeah, there shouldn't probably be an interim title 3 months after your champion won a belt. And, but I'm not really surprised that the UFC did it. They're always going to do that kind of stuff for business. And the interim title was something that was a little prestigious back in the day, maybe with the UFC, but it's basically used as a business tactic now by the UFC and as a tool to kind of oust fighters and to put pressure on them to fight and stuff like that. So it is what it is. It's, we could sit here and give out about it for an hour if we wanted to, but it's happened before and it's probably going to happen again down the line.
Either of Elvis or Lee, have you got any thoughts on that that's differing?
So no, I completely agree. It's a UFC business tactic when you're negotiating either on pay or fights on your contracts and things like that. The only thing I will say positive about it, and I'm trying to be more glass half full, is at least Cyril Gane and Derek Lewis get paid a bit more for it.
Sorry, can we say his name properly, please?
I'm not going to.
Cyril Gane.
I'm going to bastardize it. I'm from the north, so I'm just going to bastardize it. But they're going to get paid more, and one of them is going to get an interim title, and that's going to lead them to get paid a bit more afterwards as well. There's no harm in that, and I think it's all doom and gloom, but I'm trying to be a bit nicer about it. At least they get paid.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, again, they get handed out all the time. I don't think it means very much. Since for the past few years, interim titles have meant very little, and it's kind of put pressure on Ngannou talking about his boxing, and it's also put pressure on John Jones, making it very clear that he's not going to get the next title shot. But also, does it mean very much? Not really. It's just a number one contender spot.
What I will be interested to look at, though, is because Ngannou's manager, agent, whoever it is, has been quite vocal on Instagram, Twitter, and so on. I'll be quite interested to see how the negotiations go afterwards, after this.
I mean, Dana came back and said that Francis was told that this was going to happen. Now, I mean, if I'm Francis, obviously, the smartest thing to do here is leak the DMs, right? Because, I mean, that's how all negotiations are done for the UFC, obviously. But, yeah, I agree. I think... I don't know. I feel like, and this is going to be a slight rant, but it's going to take us into our next news topic. And that's that I feel like the UFC are seriously damaging their product over the last little while. And the reason why I say that is because, okay, at the moment, the brand and the roster carry the poor management decisions through. Never before have we seen a lightweight division as hot as lightweight is right now. We've never seen 135 as hot. We've never seen 125 as hot. Heavyweight is actually interesting for the first time in years, right? 170, there's just murder after murderer after murderer in that row. However, I feel like some of the decisions that are being made as the UFC teeters more and more towards an entertainment business rather than a fight organization, it's sort of malpractice in the way that they're marketing to fight fans rather than entertainment fans. Now, the problem you have when you have somebody as your champion as Francis Ngannou, right? Legitimately the scariest man on the face of the earth, right? Like, for sure, he looks like an Adonis. He can knock you out with a third of a punch, right? And he talks well, right? He seems humble enough. He's got an amazing backstory. And you openly, publicly disrespect him by putting on an interim title shot. Now, again, to the hardcores, to us three, obviously not Robbie, because obviously not Lee, because he doesn't watch Cage Warriors, but to the hardcore fans, like, we don't care about interim titles, right? We just want to see the best fights, and we want to see, the best guys fight the best. But I do think there is an element where we're being turned off the UFC slightly. I mean, this is my personal opinion. Like, obviously I'll still watch the UFC because they have the best fighters and generally the best fights. Fuck me, Robbie's on it already, lad.
It's a Friday.
I respect that. But for those of you just listening, Robbie has got a can of Heineken and a fresh haircut, so I mean, all systems go. But yeah, the thing that I find that is really turning me off the UFC is the media machine behind it, right? The machine are making decisions more than ever before. Now we're seeing Hunter Campbell feature more than ever before is just the stinking pile of shit on fire that is Dana, is just spouting and seemingly having way more of an influence than before. And I just feel like there's serious problems like at the core. Whereas if you go and look at something like a PFL, right? They're not trying to be anything fancy, but what they've got is a really fun format, right? You got stars like Brendan Loughnane coming out. Obviously, the controversy with Rory McDonald. You've got Pettis going out. Clarissa Shields, Kayla Harrison, all this stuff. Like, there's guys that are coming out, and it's interesting to watch, right? Bellator is still, quite a ways away, but they're attempting to draw things together, and it still feels in some fashion with the ranking system and this and that they're attempting to put on a fight organization, right? And where this leads me to all the way through is what I personally think is the best MMA organization outside of the UFC, and that's Cage Warriors. So Cage Warriors put on a trilogy event most recently. Again, I'll start with Ian. Thoughts on the Cage Warriors trilogy?
The trilogy as a whole was fantastic. We had some Irish interest there. It was a good weekend for Irish MMA. We came out of it. With two world champions.
Come on, two Cage Warriors champions. Come on.
It's technically a world championship belt. It's a world championship belt. So that's what we'll call it. And, fair play to Joe McColgan. I was super happy to see him get the belt. He's put in a lot of work over the years and deserves that success. And the scenes of him coming back into his gym and stuff like that, it was just great to see. Ian Gary put on a hell of a performance. I think other things surrounding the fight with his fallout with the camp and stuff like that kind of took away from that win a little bit, but I was very happy for him. It was a tremendous performance. It seemed like he had a lot going on in and around his camp with injuries and other stuff going on. So, to be able to go in there and dominate Jack Grant in the way that he did, considering everything that had been going on, shows that he has strong mentality, which you do need to have as well if you're competing at the top level in the sport too. But like the whole card, there was the Bonner fight and Matthias Frederick's fight was a phenomenal fight as well. Jesus. That first card was crazy. Just got set the scene for the whole weekend. It was just like Cage Warriors should be very, very happy. It was a really good show.
Absolutely. And I just want to dive in because I'm probably the biggest Cage Warriors fan ever. Like, there are some things that I really dislike about Cage Warriors, but they are overshadowed drastically by the things that I absolutely love about them. And the sort of the convex of Cage Warriors in comparison to the UFC is their behind closed doors management is seemingly, I don't know it obviously, but it's nailed on, right? Like, it seems like they're there to promote fighters. They have a very clear direction. They want to bring fighters in, put the best fighters against the best fighters, find out who the best fighters in Europe are, and then send them to the UFC, right? That's basically their goal, or wherever they want to go. You've got a fantastic matchmaker in Ian Dean, probably one of, if not the best matchmaker in the world right now.
I think he nearly is the best at the end of the world right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then, Graham runs a tight ship, seems to take no bullshit, seems to know what he wants from his fighters, seems to know what he wants from his promotion, and goes out and does it, right? They're obviously included in Safe MMA, which is amazing, and you don't get that with a lot of MMA productions. And yeah, they just get it right, the pacing of the shows, the production,
the commentary team is unbelievable. Like, it's unbelievable. Like Brad and the addition of Dan Hardy as well. Like, they just do an absolutely tremendous job. And yeah, it's just a joy to look at. The product as a whole is fantastic. and you know, Ian Dean is doing a tremendous job, and and then also they need the talent as well, you know, in order to put the cherry on top of the cake. You can have everything perfect production wise, commentary wise, everything, but if you don't have the fighters, you don't get them matched up properly. It's not going to work. Well, Ian Dean does a fantastic job at doing that, and like there's no real gimme fights in Cage Warriors, and that's why we've seen a lot of those Cage Warriors fighters move over to the likes of the UFC and stuff like that. And yeah, it's great to see, and I can't wait for the next one already.
I agree. I mean, before I chuck it over to you, Robbie, I just wanted to ask an overarching question, and maybe you can fill this question in at the end of your thoughts. Like, I want to know, if you could have top 3 standout performances from the Cage Warriors trilogy, who would you pick?
Oh, Christ. Well, I can't pick them because my only qualm with Cage Warriors is that they put all 3 cards over 3 days. It's so hard to watch. There are too many bits, and it was fantastic. And I have had time to watch them all. But I don't know 3. I could pick out 3 from a single card if I'd watched one, but I'm not even going to comment, because even if I'm going to do 3, I'm going to look back and I'm going to be disappointed I missed one out. But I don't know what more I can say. You two are like waxing lyrical about Cage Warriors. It's a great organization. Ian, I can't believe you missed out Dan Strauss, though, when you're talking about the commentary team.
Yeah.
He seemed to have a bit of a thing for Bravo chokes during
taking the back.
Yeah, every time he mentioned the Bravo choke, and I'm like, I don't remember the last time I saw a Bravo choke in MMA. That excellent work. But I don't know what else to say about it. What you haven't already.
So Ian, I mean, maybe we can go one for one. I think my top of the list is Joe McColgan.
Yes, I probably have to agree with you there. That was on paper a hell of a lot of a tougher fight for Joe than what he made it. You know, I would not have been uber confident that, you know, it was actually his interview with Sean kind of changed my opinion. It was so good and raw and honest, and he seemed that he was in the right place, and his mentality seemed that, like, you know, this was his, like, if he went in there and lost, you know, that was it for Joe, I think, you know, and I think he knew that himself. And he just went in there and absolutely destroyed Sardari. I was blown away by it. It was like you take off your media cap for a minute and you turn into a fan for a second, because I was up out of my seat and I was happy to see that, you know, and I just feel, you know, it was great for Joe, great for the team, and he definitely would be in the number 1 spot for performances of the weekend for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just before we move on to my second pick, I actually picked Joe McColgan really heavily in that fight. I just thought, obviously I don't have the personal ties that you and some of the other guys have to Joe, but I just felt like McColgan's style against Sardari's style is just a terrible styles matchup for Agi Sardari. And that takes nothing away from the fighter that Agi Sardari is, but just what Joe brings to the table is so hard to deal with when you're a fighter like Agi Sardari. But my second performance goes to William Gomez. So again, the fighters that didn't watch this, Tobias Harila is like, I mean, he's Dan Hardy's favorite fighter, right? That's what it seems like. Comes in the fucking jumpsuit and the Joker mask and just walks down William Gomez for literally 15 minutes whilst getting the head bet off him, and just showed supreme composure and supreme skill set to be able to circle that cage, land the shots that he needed to land, hit takedowns, hit beautiful trips, hit, you know, just fantastic footwork. So William Gomez is my second, and my third is obviously Ian Garry, right? I mean, you know, I'd be remiss. I know that we can't say too much about the team fallout or anything else that sort of circulated around at that time, but you know, Ian Garry said himself that he tore a ligament in his knee 2 weeks out or whatever. He then 10 days out. Him and his camp fell apart. So to walk into the biggest fight of your career with one leg or half of one leg, right? No corner, no team, still go make weight professionally and put on the performance he did. To me, that's way more impressive than anything he did in the actual fight. And there was plenty in the fight that was actually extremely impressive. But I think showing that mental toughness to be able to go through all of those things and still produce and still dominate, that tells me a lot about the man, you know?
Yeah, I agree there. I won't say it again. You said it perfectly there too, to go in there and do what he did under the circumstances was fantastic. Just another one, I guess, that I would like to mention, an honorable mention would be Nathan Fletcher. I think that he looked absolutely fantastic, and he is a serious prospect. And it's just, you know, you look at some guys and you're just dying to see them fight again. And he's a guy that I cannot wait to see fight again. He's just been dominating all of his performances, 6-0 right now, and he has the world at his feet at 135 pounds. And I'm thinking that we're looking at a potential future champion, and he's definitely a guy who's going to be moving on to the UFC for sure in the next year or two, I'd say, for sure.
Well, my other honorable mention is Sam Creasy, just because I fucking love him, and to be able to throw that many, in the words of Dan Strauss, high octane takedowns and mat returns, and still be able to push and continue to use fantastic. Anyway, we'll jump into
other honorable mentions, guys. No one else you want to shout out from the card?
I think that'll be it, actually. Do you know what we should do for the next trilogy? We'll do a breakdown, and we'll do whatever, because even if it's just me and Ian, because I know the other two scrubs won't probably want to watch it, but yeah, we'll jump into the UFC. So 264, the trilogy, the second trilogy of the week. Initial thoughts: Poirier, McGregor, Lee.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Am I a little fatigued of the build up to this fight? I think I am. I'm not looking forward to it as much as I thought I would be. I don't see this as a really enticing fight. I see if it ends early, it's Conor. If it ends later, it's Poirier. If it goes to decision, it's probably going to be Poirier's. I don't know. It's kind of turned around very quickly. I don't think there's too much time to make too many changes in terms of techniques. I think it's more strategy than anything else. I think Conor's going to come in a bit more lively, kind of a bit more structured game plan, aware of the calf kicks. But I'm kind of, I don't know, a little indifferent. I don't know whether it's because we're more than a week away and I've kind of not been bitten by the UFC's media machine yet. But I don't know, is that just me or am I being really negative?
I think you're being negative as fuck, Lee.
I don't. I definitely don't.
No,
I can definitely agree a little bit. I agree a little bit with Lee.
Fine. I'm not as excited as the first time it came around, but I don't see any reason why it's not going to be a fantastic fight. That's what I'd say. I think it'll be a great fight. I don't see any reason it wouldn't. Harry, you're making a fucking face at me about this, but last time was great. It wasn't the longest, but it was great. Fine. There are not going to be a huge amount of changes. We're going to see what Conor can do to change it up versus the calf kicks. And it's just going to be more of the same. I mean, they're both going to bring it. None of them are going to stall out. Last time it was really close, despite all of the media shooting down McGregor afterwards. At the end of the day, he clearly won the first round and had Poirier in trouble. And there was one technique that worked particularly well against McGregor, and it'd be interesting to see if he can mitigate that, and then to see how the fight goes. Yeah, I mean, I don't see fine. I'm not as buzzing for this one as I was the first one, but I think you're still been a bit negative.
So I think Poirier's plan is going to be quite wrestle heavy, and I think it's going to be. He felt the power, he felt the threat from the first round the first time. And I think you see on Conor's Twitter, he's like, first one to shoot this and first one to do wrestling's this. Like, he knows that, and he knows he can hurt Poirier. Poirier knows that. And I think that's where the change will be. The calf kicks will probably be 0 this time. I think it's going to be more wrestling heavy, kind of clinch up, take the sting out of Conor early. And it's a good game plan, and I think it would probably work. I'm probably siding more towards Poirier than Conor at this point, but I don't know. I think, do you know what? I think next week, once I start engaging with Instagram and Twitter and the fight really starts to build, maybe I'll get a bit more into it. But I think it's maybe come a bit too soon, or I'm not that bothered.
Ian, before I shit all over this, go on.
When it comes to the excitement factor around Conor McGregor fights, it's definitely not where his previous fights have been. Maybe that's down to the fact that, you know, he went on such a great run. And we were all caught up in the magic of that run as well. Maybe it's down to the fact that he's lost his last 4 fights in a row-ish. I guess Cowboy Cerrone one, if you want to count that. But, you know, when you lose a bit of star power. And for him, he's not doing that much media anymore. You know, we were talking about world tours. We were talking about this and this and that in the Aldo fight, and he was doing tons and tons of media. The media is stopped now. He doesn't really need to do as much media anymore. When you're not doing that media, that doesn't help with the excitement factor. You know, you're not hearing little snippets. You're not hearing any of the shit talk. I'm hearing that he's not going to be doing any media at all. I don't know if he is he'll probably go to the press conference and stuff like that. Hopefully he has a sit down with Ariel Helwani. Maybe that might happen, but what I'm hearing is that he's not going to be doing too much media on the build up to this fight. And that's pretty clear. We're a week away now and we haven't heard much from him, the odd tweet here and there. You know, I'm the same as you guys, where I'm not really hyped or too excited right now about the fight, but I think it will come later on next week when we get closer. And like, we're all going to be sitting on the edge of our seats when they're facing off in the octagon next Saturday night. When it comes down to the fight itself, movement for Conor McGregor is the key in this fight. And how he moves. Does he go back to his old style? He's in and out stance, kind of karate style, wide stance, he's in and out movement. It complemented the power that he had in his left hand, because it was a combination of two things. You know, he has that sick power that in his left hand and his right hand. He's power in both hands, but his in and out movement, a combination with that and his left hand, is what got him so much success in the UFC. When you have that power and you're moving forward with that power as well, it obviously creates more power, and he needs to get back to that. His movement in the first fight was perfect and it counteracted Poirier. His movement in the second fight was awful. Approached it with the boxing stance and just stood in front of Poirier and was just a target to be hit at any time Poirier wanted. I kind of agree with the fact that Poirier probably will not lean on the leg kicks as much in this third fight. I think that, he will probably implement a bit more wrestling, and I think he'll probably try and play it safe in rounds 1 and rounds 2 with McGregor and try not open up too much. And then once McGregor starts to tire like he does in certain fights in rounds 3, 4, and 5, I can see Poirier maybe turning the screw a little bit on McGregor as well. But for me, it's movement. And, you know, he spoke the last time about not having to sit down on the stool for the first time in his career in between rounds. But it's no good to you when you're lying unconscious at the end of the second round, to be honest. And I'm worried that, you know, did he lose his in-out kind of on his still explosive stance? Did he get that out of his game in order to rebuild his cardio up? Because all of that explosive movement is going to cost you in your gas tank eventually, rather than you're slugging forward and kind of slumped down boxing, trudging forward. You're not using that much energy doing that. He was looking to land big power shots against Poirier in the second fight, and Poirier was well able to take them. You know, he was hurt, but he took them. And I don't think McGregor was expecting that. And it's up to McGregor now to pull something out of the fire here. And I'm kind of leaning towards Poirier myself, to be honest, coming into this fight.
So I'm going to try and sew this up in a bow.
Go.
I think MMA moves incredibly quickly, right? I don't think if you spend time focusing solely on one thing, right, or degrading what you determine MMA to be as a step up for something else, which is essentially what we saw in the second Poirier fight. McGregor essentially said it himself, that he was using Poirier as a warm-up for the Pacquiao fight, right? when you, I don't want to use the word disrespect because that's not right, but when you downplay the effectiveness of MMA and the difficulty of MMA and how fast the game moves, what happened on that night was it was something utterly simple that unraveled McGregor's entire game plan. But that to me is cataclysmic as to a showing of what McGregor is now, right? McGregor hires out his own gym. He turns up to fights on a yacht. You know, he's been reported that he doesn't have a coach anymore per se. He runs his own track camps. He writes his own training plans, etc., etc. If that didn't work for Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali or any other great, I don't see why it would work for Conor McGregor. The difficulty I have is we just don't know where McGregor is right now. It's quite clear that McGregor is not at the height of his powers, right? He's not the McGregor that turned in a performance against Eddie Alvarez. I completely agree with Robbie that he definitely won the first round against Poirier and he definitely looked good. However, you clearly saw, in my opinion, he hit Poirier with a straight lift and Poirier took this big, deep exhale like, oh, I can take these. And it's at that point that rolls me into the thing that Firas Zahabi once said, and I think spells one of the big weaknesses in McGregor's game. And Firas is like, look at him. He's a supremely conditioned athlete. There's no problem whatsoever with his cardio. He panics. And when he panics, it's like anyone that's ever competed. If you have an adrenaline dump, you could be the fittest guy in the room and your cardio will drop through the floor, right? And I think you can see that against Nate in the first fight, elements of Nate in the second fight. And when he's getting hit with that calf kick, he's like, fuck me, I need to barrel through these and hit him with a left hand. But Poirier had taken those left hands, right? Now, if Poirier does engage in a wrestle heavy approach, McGregor of old had absolutely phenomenal takedown defense, right? Phenomenal, widely underrated.
His takedown defense is still good today.
And that's my point, right? And if if Poirier, we saw it in the Poirier second fight, right? If he wants to employ that wrestle heavy stance, maybe that plays into McGregor's game, knowing how much he's built on that takedown defense. But to your point about Lee, about not being all that excited, I think Ian sort of summed it up. Every time you lose a tiny bit of star power, right? And I think as massive a star as McGregor is, for the hardcore fans, the shine of he's going to come in, talk a bag of shit, call his shot, and then take it, it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore, right? So now he's just a really special fighter that was. Now, he could go in against Poirier and blast him out of the water. He could. He could go in and grind out a 5-round decision, right? He could. I think this fight, and I know I said it in the last breakdown, but I'm going to say it again in this one. This fight will really, truly show us where McGregor is in his MMA career. I think if he loses this, we're going to have some serious conversations about the level of competition that McGregor starts to face. Maybe he goes and does the Diaz match. Maybe he goes and takes a Masvidal match. Maybe he goes and fights Logan Paul, right? And makes millions of dollars and absolutely obliterates this guy. But who knows, right? But I think if McGregor loses against Poirier in the weekend, the days of McGregor fighting for a title is done.
Yeah. I think, you know, I got caught out before the second fight because the projection that Conor was given across to everybody was that he was in the right mental state. He looked fantastic going into that second fight. Like, he looks in phenomenal shape coming into this third fight too.
Yeah, man.
But you know, it's all down to the mental aspect. You know, you can have your right mentality on the build up. You can have your right mentality training, but you also have to maintain that mentality when you get into the cage as well. And, you know, and to fight through adversity. And McGregor, like you said, is a good front runner fighter. But when he starts to lose a little bit of control in the fight, he does kind of panic a little bit and maybe look for ways out. And this is the truth. This is the fight that will define, like Harry said, if he's going to be a championship fighter or if he's just going to be fighting money fights for the rest of his career. You know, the Nate Diaz fight is always in his back pocket. You know, win or lose this fight. Masvidal might be there too, but I reckon it would be Nate Diaz all the way, which would be probably a pretty winnable fight for him with the way both fighters are at their careers right now. But I'm excited to see what he comes out with here. Like this is a real big test of character here for Conor McGregor. And I'm, he's gone back. I've seen Peter Queally doing some training with him. He's ditched his family for this camp as well, which is good. I liked it. I liked that. I didn't like the fact that he came in the yacht and he was surrounded by his family and he was in his comfort zone in the second fight. And you need to, like I said, like fight game is all about sacrifices, and you need to make those sacrifices in order to get yourself into the right mental state of mind to go in there and fight another man. You have to garner that energy of being away from your family and how tough and how much you miss them and going into the grind every day. All that stuff molds your mentality before you go into a fight, all those sacrifices. So he's making those. So he has, inactivity was the excuse. They didn't know about leg kicks last time. That was the excuse. Well, there'll be no fucking excuses after this fight. You're either going to go in and you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. And that's about it. You can't, no ifs, ands, or buts will come out after this fight. You're like, Conor McGregor is either good enough to get this win or he's not good enough anymore. I still think he has it inside him to get that win. He has it inside him, but he has to get it out of himself when he gets in there. You know what I mean? You just don't suddenly turn into a bad fighter. Yeah, you lose a little bit here and there, but he's not at a stage in his career where he's on a downward spiral. He peaked a couple of years ago, but he's still a top quality fighter. He still has that ability, like Dustin Poirier as well. Like he came in there and fought Poirier, who was at elite level, like lightweight as well. You know what I mean? Like he is no scrub whatsoever, and it'll be just as big a win again for Poirier as it would be for McGregor as well. And, talking about it now, I'm kind of getting a little bit excited about it. It's the first time I've sat down. I've been thinking about the fight for the last couple of days and trying to break it down and stuff, but I haven't really sat down and talked to anybody about it until now. And yeah, it's kind of getting the juices flowing, as they say. But
you're welcome.
This is all down to Conor McGregor. We know how good Dustin Poirier is. We know what Dustin Poirier can do. He showed that in the second fight. Dustin Poirier's mentality cannot be questioned after that. I think this fight is all surrounding McGregor and what's really going on with him and what he really has left inside of him. If he truly wants to go back and challenge for belts again, this is the fight that he needs to prove it to everybody that he can get it done.
There is something to build on what Harry said as well, though. Sorry to interrupt you, Robbie. It will be
no.
Is the camp side of it. Brown from ATT is a phenomenal coach and massively underrated. His game planning is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at little details that make a big difference, Conor McGregor is undoubtedly in phenomenal shape. But if he's kind of running his own camp, like you say, it's not worked for people in the past, why is it any different now? Versus a very structured approach from Brown and ATT kind of machine, which is phenomenal at the minute. And I don't think we get enough credit of how good they are. I think that could be a real big differentiator as well.
Yeah, it's down. I'm very curious. I don't know. I've seen Peter Queally over there, like I mentioned, but I don't know who else he's been sparring with. Mm-hmm. But he's been sparring with other SBG guys, and I think that in the past that probably and his sparring partners maybe for the second Poirier fight maybe weren't up to scratch, because when you get some maybe younger SBG guys in there sparring with Conor McGregor, they have that level of respect for him where there might be an awe saying like, oh shit, I'm sparring Conor McGregor now. Where in comparison to just bringing in some guy that has no affiliation to SBG, doesn't give a shit about Conor McGregor, pay him to go in there and spar. And that's where you need to get your work in. Some guy who doesn't give a shit, but that's Conor McGregor, and who's actually going in there to spar and put on some good work with McGregor. That has no allegiance to him, that doesn't not that it doesn't respect him, but is not looking at him in awe or anything like that. When you talk about him sparring with maybe younger SBG fighters, like they're going to be like they would be idols of McGregor, so you're not going to get true sparring work in with that level of sparring partners, I think. So I always think that he should have took himself out of the comfort zone, but he likes to be in control of his camps, and that's no secret right now. I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of a game plan that himself and John Kavanagh can manifest coming into this third fight, because like Poirier has a lot more in his back pocket, as in terms of what he can do. He has the confidence to know that he can beat him on the feet right now, and he also has the wrestling in the back pocket. He has leg kicks, and he's in a number of ways to win this fight. And I feel that McGregor has less ways to win this fight, whereas that he needs to land a big shot and finish him inside the first round or the second round, or it could end up being a tough night.
On that topic, I think I've got 2 points, but the first one I want to address, you mentioned that there's only one way for McGregor to win it. Why are you guys all so convinced that Poirier is going to be moving away from the leg kicks when they worked for him so well the first time around?
It's too obvious.
Because I think they're going to be expecting McGregor not to be coming forward with a boxing stance anymore, and they're still going to be there. And I think that, I would be betting on that he will land a couple of leg kicks. But for Poirier, if you're going to rely on that game plan again, you need to be expecting McGregor is going to try and counteract that. So you're going to have something else. You're going to have something else prepared in terms of game plan to try and counteract what McGregor is doing.
The analogy is the UFC game, right? The first fight was you just spam X and just leg kick, leg kick, leg kick. This time it's not going to be there. The leg kicks will be there. You have to set them up better.
Yeah. The thing that gets me is that it's, how long has it been since the last fight?
6 months, 8 months, something like that.
Yeah,
8 months. It's been a while, but 8 months is a long time to shift your game plan. And I'm not saying that it's going to be as easy as last time. Clearly, if there was a very successful tactic that worked last time, they're going to put in the first thing that McGregor's team are going to do is address that issue. Mm-hmm. It just strikes me that, okay, so normally when I would make a pick, what I would say is what happened last time. Is there a clear reason to think differently? And at the moment, we've not seen anything clear from McGregor because he's not fought in that time frame. I get that he's going to put in a game plan to change that. It's just all three of you seem very convinced that the leg kicks are, that he's going to be doing wrestling instead of leg kicks.
The first thing he did in the first fight was shoot in for a takedown.
Yeah.
So, and that got McGregor thinking about the takedown instantly, which kind of could throw McGregor off his game plan too. And I'm not too sure and I'd love to hear, maybe Dustin Poirier did say it, but I haven't heard it yet. But if the number one game plan was to calf kick the leg, because I don't know if Poirier would have been expecting McGregor, because we weren't expecting McGregor to come out and fight the way he fought in that second fight. So if something is there, you're going to take it. And I think that's what happened in the second fight. That leg kick, the calf kick was there for Poirier all day long. And McGregor's just standing in front of him, just trying to land big shots, planting down on his lead leg. That leg kick is there. And a fighter of Dustin Poirier's ability is going to notice that. And I think that, they landed a couple in round ones, and then into round two, they went even more heavily on him, because I'm sure Mike Brown just noticed it in between rounds as well.
So it just strikes me that it's going to be pretty obvious where I'm leaning in terms of my pick, that if someone's comfortable fighting in a certain style, and then they are forced to address that and change it, even if you've got a while to change it up without another fight to break it in live, I can't imagine McGregor is going to be forced to change up his style in order to address that. I wonder how comfortable McGregor's going to be changing up his style and changing it to maybe it's what it used to be. Maybe he's got experience in it, but he is still forced to adapt to the leg kicks if that is going to be.
Is he changing his style, or is he reverting back?
I was going to say
I think he changed. I think he changed his style somewhat going into the second fight, and which cost him. So it's more so go back to what worked for you in the past is probably the best way. And then just to reiterate my point is that what I would worry about him going back to his old explosive in-out style is that it is going to cost him cardio, and if he doesn't get the job done early, his gas tank will empty a lot quicker than what it would if he was to, like, it's a double-edged sword for McGregor. You do your explosive movement, you try and get him out of there in 2 rounds, or you stand and try and land big shots and get the leg kicked off you. You know, it's tough. Maybe they've come up with a different game plan again altogether. Maybe he's tweeting Dustin Poirier not to take him down because maybe he has something in the works. He could be looking to try and land those big elbows that he's landed before up against the cage. That maybe he's saying don't shoot for a takedown in order so that Poirier does shoot for a takedown, because he's going to be prepared for a takedown. Like, every fighter is going to want to take Conor McGregor down. It's as simple as that. So if you're not going to be preparing for that, you're fighting a losing battle already.
I think realistically, McGregor's not. He's not an idiot enough to think that calling Poirier a dusty bitch for doing takedowns is going to stop Poirier doing takedowns. No, if anything, it's a double bluff. More likely than not, it's just something to psych Poirier out and not actually change his style in any way. It's just to upset him a little bit.
Anything that Conor McGregor tweets out, you take everything with a pinch of salt, especially when he's talking like that.
But it's working as well, because I saw a clip of Poirier in the interview with one of the UFC staff, and they asked him about the calf kicks, and he was like, well, I've not really worked on them because Conor's probably going to come and calf kick me. You can see the seeds that are being sown kind of coming to everything Conor does, and everything Conor tweets is calculated. It's not just kind of a whim. He's doing it for a reason. And I think the style will change, the game plan will change. And I think it might have a bigger impact on Poirier in terms of overthinking, because Conor's got to change his style to reflect what happened last time. Poirier is thinking what Conor might think to then change his style to then account for what might happen. And that's a really convoluted way of saying my point, which isn't very articulate. But
I get it though. That's what we're all doing here. That's why you guys think that he's going to shy away from the leg kicks, because he's going to try to adapt to what he expects McGregor to do. Mm-hmm. And Harry, I'm guessing you want to move on to the next fight, because
absolutely. We've been talking far too long about this McGregor fight. We're going to move to picks, right? Because otherwise we're going to be here. This will be the whole podcast. We could do it.
Proud. I'm proud of myself that I didn't give the picks away early this time.
That's
normally I let slip, and
there's the rest of the card to go though.
We didn't
We didn't even get into the apparent staph infection that Conor's got either.
Oh, he's through this.
I don't think it's staph.
Give me a pick.
I think Poirier by decision.
Ian.
Poirier TKO KO round 4.
Robbie.
I'm picking Poirier. I don't know exactly. I don't know round and method, but I think the leg kick's going to play a bigger deal than you think. I think he's just going to have to be more clever about setting them up.
I think Poirier decision. I feel like McGregor's going to have a really strong first 2 rounds. I think the third is going to be the swing round, and Poirier will probably win the 4th and the 5th. And I
think it might look a lot like the Dan Hooker fight for Poirier.
I feel like it's going to look a lot like the second Nate Diaz fight in terms of the swinging of rounds.
Mm-hmm. The thing that worries me going into the fight is that McGregor in round 1 goes from here to here, where Poirier goes from here to here. You know, Poirier grows into a fight a lot better than Conor McGregor does. And I feel that, you know, when McGregor is put up against it, I think that he might buckle again. I hope it doesn't happen really as an Irishman, but I have to be realistic too. And think, you know, I don't know how driven McGregor is. And we'll find out on Saturday night. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
That's some grade A journalistic integrity right there.
Indeed. Right. Gilbert Burns, Stephen Thompson. Jesus, we made it. I mean, I'm going to break this one down. This one was me. Jesus. I feel like I'm going to try and sum this up as cleanly as possible. We know Stephen Thompson is arguably the most elite striker at 170, right? His vast array of footwork. He uses a front kick as a front side kick as a jab, which is nuts. You know, his fadeaway shots, his angles, everything else is just absolutely fantastic. And then you've got a human steamroller in Gilbert Burns, right? Clearly, if you stand in front of him, he will make you pay. Ask Kamaru Usman in the first round of their fight. My fear here is that Stephen Thompson is now in his mid to late 30s, right? His last fight out, was his last fight out Pettis? No, it wasn't. He beat the brakes off Jeff Neal. Yeah. So he beat the brakes off Vicente Luque, which actually is where I'm looking at my big comparison for this fight. He beat the brakes off Jeff Neal and had a absolutely nuts knockout against Pettis that was just flash in the pan sort of stuff. The reason why I'm going to make the comparison to Vicente Luque is Gilbert Burns has a similar style in that he walks forward, happy to trudge forward, happy to take a few shots, to land a few shots. Vicente Luque obviously doesn't have the same power as Gilbert Burns. And please, Vicente, my boy, don't take this with any disrespect, right? But he doesn't, right? He doesn't have that same power. I'd also argue that Gilbert doesn't have the same chin as Vicente either, right? But where I see some similarities is one, the walking forward style, and two, if it hits the mat, boy, are they able to grapple. Now, again, Gilbert Burns, vastly decorated jiu-jitsu player. Stephen Thompson, less decorated jiu-jitsu player. I think this is really it's a striker versus grappler, right? If Thompson is able to keep it on the feet, Gilbert Burns is going to walk into enough front kicks and side kicks and fadeaway shots that he's probably going to get finished, right? If he doesn't, and he's able to get it to the ground, we saw Thompson against Woodley. Like when Woodley actually got it to the ground, he was able to land some pretty ferocious ground and pound on Stephen Thompson, and Thompson's get-up game didn't look fantastic. If you're on the ground with Gilbert Burns and you're a fish out of water, he's going to sub you really, really quickly. So, I mean, essentially, Stephen Thompson's going to be playing the floor as lava, right? And if his back touches it, he has to get up, and he has to get up really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. I feel like we could do a little bit further analysis on the actual, ins and outs of this point. But I think the biggest thing we have to say is if Thompson keeps it on the feet, I think he wins. And if Gilbert Burns manages to take to the ground, I think he wins pretty handily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty good sum up there. Like, and I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you. I think the big question is, I mean, one bit that I'm actually not very well informed on. What's Gilbert Burns' takedown methodology like? He's not really like a double. He's not really like a guy who shoots big doubles, is he? He's not like a sort of a classic wrestler.
No. He's happy to pull you to the ground. He's happy to push you against the cage and take you down from there.
So I think it's not so much a question of can he take him. Well, it is a question of can he take him down. I think the point where it's going to be decided is can Gilbert Burns close distance and get it to the clinching distance and, get it from there. Because once there, I think he's got a reasonable chance of taking it down. But I think that's where he's in most danger, is that point where he's closing in and cutting off that distance. That is where the fight is going to be won and lost, in my opinion.
For sure.
He's going to have to, this is a fight he's going to have to try and take that risk to close the distance on Wonderboy, because if you allow Wonderboy to fight his fight, he's going to fight it at his range and just kick and throw his 1-2s and probably just win an easy decision. But it will be up to Gilbert Burns to close the distance and get him up against the cage and try and get him down. And if he has the ability to do that, he definitely wins this fight.
Yeah. Lee, any additions or should we move on?
No, the only one I'd add to it is I think the fight's closer than the odds appear, but I think they're also fighting in the bigger cage, which I think is a bigger differentiator for Wonderboy than it is for Gilbert. If he was at the apex in the smaller cage, I'd probably sway a bit more towards Gilbert.
Don't you fucking dare. Sean Sheehan's going to come to your house and rearrange your salt and pepper pots, mate. No disrespect on Stephen Thompson's name shall be tolerated. Lee, can you give me a pick?
I'm going to go Thompson by decision.
Okay, Robbie?
I'd probably say Thompson by decision, yeah.
Ian?
Thompson by decision.
I'm grateful for all of your incorrect picks. The correct answer is Wonderboy by late stoppage. Right.
Okay.
If I'm Wonderboy,
I would say that if it was a 5-round fight, but if the fact that it's a 3-round fight, I think it kind of would help Gilbert Burns a little bit more because he does tire out a little bit. But sorry for interrupting.
I feel like Gilbert is going to be chasing Thompson a lot. His cage cutting isn't fantastic, and you're going to be chasing a ghost, right? You really are. And a ghost.
Your guys were bigging up Gilbert Burns against Usman not so long ago. And now he's going to lose a decision to Wonderboy just months after that.
I don't know. I think the difference in stand up between Kamaru Usman and Stephen
it's
Thompson
a completely different
night
style.
and fucking day. You know what I mean? Like to
Well,
say
you're saying he was going to be world champion there not so long ago. I just wondering what's changed since then.
Well, the
style of the fight.
Stars make fights,
It's
right?
the
Absolutely.
style, yeah.
The ability. I mean, we saw it, right? Gilbert dropped Kamaru bad. And if he didn't just unload all of his XP points on trying to finish finish Kamaru there and then, we might have had a new world champion, right? But I don't think that's, I mean, that's a fucking crazy argument, to be honest. Like any style makes a fight, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that fucking debate. Robbie, Tuivasa versus Greg Hardy, please.
Harry, I feel kind of bad because you just did an excellent technical insight and an excellent bit of information on this. I have a few things to say about this fight. One of them is that I hope they give them both inhalers. One of them is that this is disappointingly high up this excellent card. Yeah. Oh, come on. Like what the fuck is there to say? I mean, heavyweight fights can be really good at the top of the division, and here you have two gentlemen who are both unranked. I don't know what to say about it. It's
classic card filler fight. That's what it is.
It's not. Heavyweights. They're going to be really exciting.
No,
Let's put them high.
It's the UFC playing into the American fight fan, sports fan market. Greg Hardy was a beast in the NFL and is known as this NFL athlete who now competes in it. He was always going to be on the main card of this fight because it gets people to buy the card to watch him. It's got fuck all to do with fighting. It's got fuck all to do with matchmaking well. It is purely your gym bros who want to watch an ex-NFL guy have a fight. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got nothing more to say.
Great. Ian, any thoughts?
Greg Hardy. That's all I have to say about whatever. I think that, I'm not too intrigued by this fight. It's a card.
I'm going to try and put a slightly technical spin on it, right?
Okay.
What I'm going to say is Greg Hardy is obviously a freak athlete, right? I think Lee already alluded to that from his other performances. The other reason he's on this card is because of the controversy that it will bring about, right? Obviously, because he was out of cage and off-field actions. But Greg Hardy did way better against Volkov than I think any of us would even begin to choose, to predict, right?
Yeah,
the guy
he did.
Has just had 10 fights. Right? Fighting Alexander Volkov, who's had more fights than I've had hot dinners, inside 10 fights is absolutely nuts. So clearly
terrible against Marcin Tybura, though.
Yeah, but I mean, these things happen in MMA. I think what I'm trying to get at is there is clearly some form of ability, right? He's happy to take risks. He's happy to throw himself in the fire a little bit. And against Tuivasa, that probably means you're going to knock him out. You know what I mean? But yeah, if Tuivasa loses this fight, he's getting cut for sure. Let's move on to an actual legitimate fight. Although, however,
we're not even making picks.
We're not even making a pick.
I mean, who gives a fuck? A one-sided beatdown. Irene Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya. Ian, take us away, please.
Yeah, this I have a funny relationship with Yana Kunitskaya because I do good news stories on Severe MMA, and she put up as an April Fool's joke that she was pregnant one time, and I went with it, and it turned out that she wasn't. So now I'm rooting for her demise every fight because she made a fool out of me.
That's fantastic.
I do good news stories every now and again, and she fooled me big time for one. So that's a running joke with everyone. Every time she fights now, I'm always rooting for her demise. But two very well-rounded women coming in at the bantamweight division here. I think it's a good matchup. It'll be very even throughout. It's basically whoever will wanted more on the night could be the person who gets their hand raised at the end of this fight. Really, Kunitskaya is probably a little bit better on the feet than what Aldana would be, I guess, a little bit technically. You don't agree, Harry?
Absolutely not. I'll let you finish and then I'll go on after, but please carry on.
I just think that, Aldana, she's been looking quite good too. But I think that Kunitskaya's work would be a lot. Well, I guess Aldana did look quite good against Holly Holm in her last fight too. So she's been fighting a lot better competition for sure. Good win over Ketlin Vieira as well. So maybe I was just being a little bit too harsh on her striking abilities, but it's probably her fight to lose this against Kunitskaya. I think that she's the better all-rounded fighter, but the two of them are very well-rounded, and it will be a pretty even fight.
So, I think this is an Irene Aldana squash match, if I'm truly honest. She has 3 to 4 inch height advantage. Supposedly they're saying it's the same reach advantage, but that's bullshit. Irene Aldana is long, man. And Irene Aldana, I mean, she knocked out Ketlin Vieira with that left hook, right? And that left hook for Aldana is absolute money. She's got that Mexican boxing style in that she's going to cut you off. She's going to bear down on you and she's going to land shots. I feel like Irene Aldana, the Holly Holm fight was a fantastic performance and it was a very close fight. If she wins that fight, title shot is coming, right? And I feel like obviously Yana Kunitskaya has been on a decent run recently. And I think they're doing this fight as a nice stars matchup for Aldana to go in, prove once again that she's got amazing hands, great stand-up, and push her towards a title shot, frankly. I feel like Kunitskaya in her UFC tenure has been a little bit up and down, right? The Marion Renault fight was okay. Landsberg was close. And then, oh God, I can't even begin to butcher that lady's name. Yulia Stolialenko. Jesus, I apologize.
Oh, you did good.
That sounded all right.
Like that was a good performance, but we saw massive holes in the Aspen Ladd fight. We saw, I mean, Kris Cyborg, these things happen, but I just feel Aldana is way more well-rounded, all around, way more well-rounded. But I mean, somebody disagrees with me.
No, Kunitskaya looked very good in her last fight against Ketlin Vieira, who was not an easy fighter to get a win over either, and I think, I say technically on the feet she could probably, that's her best, Kunitskaya's best route to get there. If she can maybe outsmart Aldana, keep away from Aldana's big shots, fight at distance, fight at range. But yeah, it's an intriguing fight. But yeah, I think it would be more Aldana's to lose than it would be Kunitskaya's fight to win.
What I will say about Aldana as well is, don't underestimate the value she'll have gotten from doing 5 rounds with Holly Holm as well. Mm-hmm. There's fights that happen in your career where you get beat where you need them because you get a hell of a lot from it. Holly Holm is getting older and kind of isn't the Holly Holm she once was, but she's still very good and she has great kind of ring generalship and things like that. She'll have taken a lot away from that fight that might push her to the next level.
Let's move to picks. Robbie?
I'm going to go Aldana, but I don't think... I feel like you're much stronger on Aldana than I am. I think it'll be fairly close. I think she'll win a decision. But yeah, I'm inclined to think that I don't think there's much chance of Aldana losing it. I just don't think she's going to dominate.
Blasphemy. Ian?
I kind of agree exactly there with what you said. I think it's going to be an Aldana decision and a close fight.
Also blasphemy. Lee?
A draw. No, I'm joking. I think it's Aldana's to lose. I think she's going to have improved massively from that Holly Holm fight. So I think I'm a bit further away than the two guys. Not as far as you though, Harry.
So, I mean, my closing thoughts are going to be this, right? Holly Holm is a fighter that generally fights on the outside, generally fights long, counter fighter. Irene Aldana led the dance and she looked really good, right? Do we think that Yana Kunitskaya is a better fighter than Holly Holm? I don't think I do. So how do we think this is
let's not do MMA math, though.
I know, I understand that. But if Ian's prediction of a game plan is right, where she's looking to fight on the outside, land her shots, stay away from Aldana, there's no staying away from Aldana. She's the Mexican Harilla, Tobias Harilla, right?
But if you're moving forward and not landing anything, that doesn't matter at all. Sure. You're not going to win. She'll have to be trying to, and that's up to Kunitskaya to try and counteract that forward movement and try not get clipped by Aldana. Easier said than done.
That's my point. I think it's the not getting clipped while moving backwards that's going to be the problem.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting that you say that you made that comparison. When you look at Cage Warriors at the weekend, staying on the outside seems to be exactly the right game plan to use in this.
If you're not getting hit. And Wilson Gomez is very good at not getting hit. Yana Kunitskaya is less good at not getting hit.
Fine.
So I'm calling Caitlin Vieira late stoppage. Caitlin Vieira late stoppage. Yeah, she's going to come in, surprise.
She's going to come in.
WWE chair.
Steel chair.
Done. Irene Aldana, late finish. We will move on to the ghost of Louis Smoker, replaced by a Kris Moutinho versus Sean O'Malley. Do we want to get into controversy of this before we do a breakdown, or?
Yeah, I think we can talk about it a little bit. There's been people up in arms, and they're wanting to point the blame to Sean O'Malley on this situation. I don't think you really can at this stage. It's not his fault that Smoker pulled out. He wants to fight. The UFC are gonna get their options. Like, guys who are coming out and saying they want to fight Sean O'Malley on Twitter doesn't mean that they're ready to fight. They have to cut weight. They have to be in shape. And, just because someone says it online doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to go. With the whole, and that was proof to the pudding, is the whole Ricky Simone thing. They wanted 145 and then 135. It's just guys will say they're ready when they're really not ready. And all that happens behind the scenes is stuff that we'll never know. I would not be blaming Sean O'Malley for this situation at all. Not his fault. And anyone who wants to put the blame on him, I just don't see it. It's not his fault. He's 10 days out from a fight. He's lost the fight. He just wants to fight at this stage. It's not his fault that they picked up this guy. And it's not his fault that he doesn't want to fight at 145 either. He's scheduled for 130.
It's the age old, he's getting the rub from the UFC. He's the guy, right? That's the reason he's on this card, because he's the guy. And for the business practices the UFC have that are bad, they do make stars and they do bring people up. And if you get their rub, you get looked after. And the UFC want to look after him.
Exactly.
I think blaming Sean O'Malley for that is redundant. It's silly. It's a waste of time. I think personally, I'd have loved to have seen the Murad Diashvili fill in.
Oh, me too.
That would have been cool.
The Cody Staman fight.
Sean O'Malley's at, but you can't do that. And actually, it wouldn't have been fair to throw a wrestler in at short notice for O'Malley, because his camp would have been built around that. I think what's happening here is it happened to Khabib, where they let him take a catch weight at 160 and somebody took it on a week. I can't remember his name. But when the UFC have you and they've got you under their rub, you get taken care of. And that's
it. Happened. The same thing happened to a certain man who was fighting in the main event as well. He had to take a short notice fight and had to take with a wrestler too, but on very short notice. So, look, it's fair to say that he's getting favorable matchups from the UFC, but that's not Sean O'Malley's fault. That's his star power, and they want to build that star power. They don't want to maybe put in a guy like Maribdishvili. That's a mouthful this morning.
We're not good at names today, are we?
No, not good. It's a bad day. But, you put in a heavy wrestler like that at short notice, he's going to come in and just try and smother O'Malley. And why I would think O'Malley probably would win that fight, it would be a very potentially sticky matchup for him against a very solid wrestler. But Moutinho got the call and he's here now. And
do you know what? He's got his opportunity, and fair play to him.
Yeah, that's it. He's going to have to take a few smacks into the face for his opportunity, and that's about it. So fair play to him. It's not his fault either. It's just the way things happen.
And it's not just about whether Sean O'Malley wins or loses. It's you don't put him against a spoiler at this point, because you just want someone, even if he doesn't knock him out, what you actually want is someone he can look good against, not edge out a victory. So
You need Sean O'Malley just to turn up on a McGregor card, because as McGregor's timeline is here, you've got Sean
This
O'Malley.
is my point. This is my point. My point is there is fucking no way Sean O'Malley does not fight on a Conor McGregor card. There is no fucking way. He would have fought me, right? And by God, I'm never making 135, right? But
didn't he get pulled from the last Conor? He was supposed to be on the last McGregor card as well, and he got pulled. So I think that they did not want that to happen again.
On his Twitch stream afterwards, he was furious, right? Furious. And you can understand why, right? Now, my only point to Robbie's thing, if you don't put him to the spoiler. No, you don't put him to the spoiler. And again, this is completely not Kris Moutinho's fault whatsoever. But I even felt Lewis Smolka was a pretty easy matchup for Sean O'Malley, to be honest. Too long, too powerful, too rangy, too good of a striker on the feet, right? Smolka was a highlight reel fight. To me, what you have to do with Sean O'Malley now is move him up slightly where there is a test, right? Eddie Wineland is not a test, right? Lewis Smolka is not a test. Yes, cool. They're great names, brilliant names for your resume. But now you need to move O'Malley on a little bit, just a little bit, right? Not a ton, not Cody Staman, not Merab Devashvili, right? Not fucking Ricky Simone.
There's a man called Marlon Vera who...
No, Jesus Christ, what the fuck's wrong with you? Jesus, fuck me. But like, you move him on a little, just a little bit, right? And then see where he is and move him on. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all picking O'Malley by whatever he wants, right?
Yeah. He's what is he? He's
2-2 in
14 fights,
knocked out
13 wins and 0 losses. I think he moves to 14 wins and 0 losses
for sure. Like the whole idea of putting him on this card against a fighter like Smolka was is that they wanted him to get an impressive win over a name. We know who we would have known Smolka. And
those 700k pay-per-view buys, get some nice new eyes on O'Malley.
Yeah. They're putting O'Malley on this card to get a finish, and they're ensuring that he gets a finish with his new opponent.
For sure. Right.
I'm glad you kept that on track. I think only Lee saw my joke there.
Yeah. We'll move on. Carlos Condit, Max Griffin, Robbie.
Yeah. I mean, if this fight had happened, well, I don't know. I'd have to check when Carlos Condit's had before his last two fights. If it happened 2 fights ago, I would not be excited in any way, quite frankly. Carlos Condit had a horrible skid ever since post the Robbie Lawler fight. Fantastic fight. Loved it. And then since then, it's just not gone well for him. And then, I thought he was done, honestly. And now I'm not so sure. I mean, he had let me get everyone's names up in front of me, but he had
Matt Brown.
Yeah, I mean, he had a fairly easy one against someone who was about as slow as him. No, well, actually, I was thinking Court McGee. Then Matt Brown. I don't know. Like he looked.
The win looks a little bit better. The win looks a little bit better against Matt Brown than it would have before last weekend. The way Matt Brown fucking sparked that guy. Sorry for interrupting. I just.
Yeah, see, that's it again. If Matt Brown had not done really well last weekend, I would just been like, fuck it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure Carlos Condit is coming back to where he was, and I'm not sure. And maybe Matt Brown had a really lucky one, and Carlos Condit and Matt Brown are both two like post their peak fighters. But this could be. Carlos Condit could be all right still. I'm really hoping that he is, and it's a decent fight because Max Griffin can really fucking hurt people. And if Carlos Condit isn't a bit back on track and a bit back to where he was, it might be a really short night for him.
I mean, it seems like this to me is like a litmus test for both guys, really, right?
Yeah.
Max Griffin loses to sort of the middle to slightly upper middle tier of fighters, whether that be Alex Morono, Alex Oliveira, Curtis Millender, etc., right? But then he beats everyone else, right? This is where is Carlos Condit? Where is Max Griffin, right? For Max Griffin, if he beats Carlos Condit, what an amazing name to have on your record as a win, right? This is like dream stuff. If Carlos Condit wins, well, that's a three fight win streak. And again, Carlos Condit probably gets moved up a little bit, right? Now, that's slightly egregious to me. I feel like that's fucking nuts. Carlos Condit's 37. He's had about 17 million fights. What are we doing pushing him up? But anyway, right, you know, these things happen. But yeah, I mean, this to me, the summation of this is Max Griffin can wrestle. He can strike. Carlos Condit's weakness has been he's been happy to get taken down in a lot of his fights and use jiu-jitsu that doesn't really work anymore in modern MMA. What happens, right? Where does the fight go? I don't really know. And I don't really have a prediction either, if I'm truly honest. I think this is a pretty 50-50 fight. You have to I think you have to kind of lean Max Griffin just because of youth and you know, his current knowledge of MMA in comparison to MBK. But I mean, yeah. Does anyone have any thoughts, or do you want to move to picks?
I think that it's what you said was a good point about, I think Carlos Condit is being used as a tool by the UFC now to try and give a jump to a fighters like Max Griffin, if Max Griffin can get it done. If Carlos Condit goes out and gets the win here, it'll be just someone else the next time. I don't think it's quite obvious to say that we'll never see Condit challenge for he's not even going to be in the realm of challenging to get into a title shot. Like, he'll be lucky if he moves himself into the top 15 in that division, to be honest. Well, a win here over Max Griffin might get him there, and might get him a top 15, top 10 guy, but it's going to be great for Carlos Condit until it's not. You know what I mean? I really, you know, I was really impressed with him in that Matt Brown fight. And I really do think that he has it in him to get the win in this fight as well. I think that his fight IQ is very good, and he can keep away from the dangers that Griffin might be able to bring on him. And I think that he has the ability for sure, as does Max Griffin, to get this win. It's who wants it more. Like, a lot of it is who wanted more on the night. Condit will have his confidence a lot better after picking up 2 wins on the bounce as well. So I'm interested to see it. I like watching Carlos Condit fight. He's always in exciting fights, and I think he has enough to get the job done here for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, go on, Robbie.
I was just going to say, your point regarding Carlos Condit, it'll be good for him until it's not. I thought that had already happened, and I'm actually really happy to see that he's done well in a couple since then. Mm-hmm. And no, we're not going to see him in a title shot, but this is the classic UFC old man legend tactic.
Yeah.
Next up, if he wins this fight, what they're going to do is they're going to put him against a prospect who's looking good and they need to test against and want to give him a bit of a rub. That's what's going to happen if he wins this fight.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll 100%. Move to picks, but just before we do that, just to, you know, Carlos Condit's 37, but Max Griffin's 35, right? So he's no fucking spring chicken himself. Yeah. My personal pick is Max Griffin by decision. Ian?
Condit decision, close fight. I think he'll fight on the outside and pick up, just make it awkward for Griffin, win the decision.
Lee?
Yeah, so Condit is a heavy underdog on this fight, and I really disagree with it. I think his fight IQ is better, and I think he can take a decision here. Now, I think Ian's point of it's good for him until it's not is perfect, and I completely agree. But I can see Condit taking this one.
Robbie?
My heart is with Condit. I really hope he wins, but I'm going to have to pick Max for this one.
All right. Well, we will move on to, I think, that's the main card done, right? We're in the undercard now, I think. Niko Price versus Michel Periera for, obviously fight of the night, right? Ian?
This I was just like, if you picture a dartboard, right? And you have on the dartboard all different ways that this fight could go and finishes, and you just throw an arrow at it, because these two guys are absolutely nuts in the cage. Niko Price is an animal. Periera is an animal. He's kind of gotten away from his crazy backflipping kind of stuff in the last couple of fights, which I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of enjoyed that, but then I'm just excited to he's just an athlete, a big, just built like a shit house, just like powerful guy. And maybe the Diego Sanchez loss was he was unlucky to have landed that illegal knee, but maybe the crazy antics was in that fight might have encouraged him to kind of nullify it a little bit. And he looked good against his fight against Chaos Williams, who's a dangerous guy as well. But Niko Price is also equally as dangerous, and I think this will be his toughest fight in recent times for Periera. Price, dangerous on the feet, not as good as Periera on the feet. He's a little bit more sloppy on the feet. He's dangerous off his back with punches, with elbows. We've seen that before. He's stopped guys off his back before. This is a really, really good fight, and hands down, this fight is going to be fight of the night for entertainment factors alone. The way Periera fights and the way Niko Price fights, one of these guys could throw something absolutely wild and it could land, and it could be either one of these fighters. To me, it's a 50-50 fight. I do think that if Periera fights the right and correct fight, he can get the job done, but I'm not ever counting out Niko Price here at all. I'm struggling to even to pick a winner. This is just going to be a wild fight that anything could happen in. And it's that for sure, hands down, going to be fight of the night. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was going to say, is there any other thoughts?
So I'm hoping that it's wild, but I gotta wonder. I'm struggling to remember Pereira's last couple of fights. I have a feeling he's not been quite as insane in these last.
No, he has not. His last two fights, there's been no fucking cartwheels, no bullshit like that, and all that jumping and cartwheeling and somersaulting and that costs a lot of energy too, which has affected him in fights where he's kind of drained his gas tank doing all that wild shit. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. If he's not, I think that Niko Price might draw the wildness out of him. And when I say wild, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be doing cartwheels around the cage in the first round or anything. I mean that there's going to be pretty wild exchanges here, flying knees, big kicks, heavy, just winging shots going at one another. But yeah, Periera is definitely, his style has changed more so for him to get a couple of wins under his belt. But Niko Price is an animal too, so they might just draw the beasts out of each other, I guess, in this fight.
So I think Pereira's grown up, and I think he fights now more mature, which I think to me gives him the advantage. I think he's a better fighter. Now I think the point is, can Price make this a batshit fight with wild exchanges where it gets a bit chaos, where Niko Price is very good. He's good in chaos. I can't see it, but if it does happen, that's where I think that's kind of Price's way to win.
All right, well, on that note, let's move to picks. Lee, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm going to go Periera, but I'm not sure why, but I think they're both getting a check.
Robbie?
In the fans win. I think someone flies out of the cage and something wild happens.
Ian?
I think Periera fights a smart fight and probably gets the decision.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So let's just skip through the fights that we have left on the prelims. We've got Dricuss du Plessis versus Trevin Giles. Do you want to quickly spin us through that, Lee?
Yep, it's very much striker versus striker. Plessis coming from KSW, where he ended a few people in his last UFC fight.
Did. His
last UFC fight ended pretty well. Trevin Giles, I don't think Trevin Giles has enough for him. I think Trevin Giles is going to be in front of him. It's going to be striking. I can see Trevin Giles getting knocked out and being ended. Plessis moves on with a bit of a highlight on his record. Quick enough.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of those points, to be honest. I mean, Trevin Giles looked good against Delidze, but I think Dricuss du Plessis is the real deal. Like, that's a top 20, top 15 fighter, in my opinion. Maybe not a champion or anything like that, but he's a fucking real deal. And it just makes you question, Ian, how good is Roberto Soldic? Huh? How good is Roberto Soldic? But yeah,
right,
sorry. Yeah, thank you. Are we all picking du Plessis, or has anyone got a differing opinion?
No, it would be du Plessis for me for sure. Yeah,
all right, we're getting to the point where my knowledge of fighters is running dry, I'm afraid.
That's fine. So Ryan Hall versus Ilia Topuria.
This one I know.
Yeah, I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about this fight.
This will be
This
40
is-
minutes of Robbie talking about weird jiu-jitsu and conspiracy.
Well, what's good is that it's not Robbie's fight. It's mine.
I'm really
So-
sad about that.
I mean, why do you think I did it? No, I mean, this is going to be a really good fight. A really good fight and a really interesting fight for a couple of things. Ilia Topuria looks like an absolute killer, right? An absolute killer. Fantastic stand-up. Just a really, really well-rounded fighter. Ryan Hall has himself, this is self-branded his MMA style. This is like, obviously I like to grapple, so my striking has to be fucking weird. And it is, right? It is. That's exactly what it is. So how does Ilia deal with, Ilia's obviously an uber prospect, 10-0, coming in here. Ryan Hall has struggled, as we know, to find fights. So does the unconventional striking allow Ryan Hall to adopt a game plan that either leads into his grappling or allows his unconventional striking to excel, right? Or are we going to see Topuria just be too much, show how good of a prospect he is, nullify the striking, nullify the grappling? Who knows? I mean, the thing that sits to me massively in this fight is when I listen to Ryan Hall, he's obviously an incredibly cerebral guy. And he talks often about when he gets into the cage, he wants to try things. Like he's attempting to try things. He's attempting to round out his style in the most live environment possible. And I think that comes from his grappling competition, right? Grappling competition is obviously you're going to get less head trauma than in an actual fight, but he'd go out there and he'd just try shit and be like, oh, I guess this works, right? Because it's happening in a live scenario. And I think that's going to be the same thing here. I honestly don't know who wins this fight. I really, really don't. I think this is about as 50-50 as we're going to find on the card. Anyone else?
I will not talk too much, I promise. What I'm going to say is I really like Ryan Hall from just this kind of interest perspective. Jiu-jitsu, he's undoubtedly fantastic and brilliant to just model game plans off and watch instructionals off. MMA, it's really hard for me to say whether he's like good at it or whether he's just like found a billion loopholes in the rules. Like,
is that not the same thing?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't know how far it's going to get him is the trouble, because he's not fought top tier competition. But his fight versus Darren Elkins was the perfect. It was just the absolute epitome of it, where it's not just a weird striking style. It's a striking style that's he's like game planned himself to the absolute T. He said he's not going to learn how to box in the time because everyone knows how to box way better than him. So he's just going to create a fighting style that works all of the ranges that his grappling doesn't, and this weird looping style where he constantly gives up his back. If he gets to middle range, he just falls over like a dead possum or something and waits for them to come at him. And I just think it's fascinating. And I just really want to see what weird loopholes and weird combination of techniques he comes up with in this fight. That's what I've got to say about it.
Leo, Ian, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree. Like, Ryan Hall is such a fun fighter to watch. And I have to give him absolute massive credit for taking this fight, because I think Topuria is a fucking animal. This guy is an animal. Out of guys who I've seen fight last year, Topuria stuck out quite a bit for me in prospects. Surprising fact, I looked into this fight. Topuria actually has more submissions in his MMA career than what Ryan Hall has, but like that doesn't matter. Ryan Hall is clearly the better guy on the ground here, and it'll be Topuria's job to keep it on the feet, land those big shots, and get Ryan Hall out of there.
For sure. Picks, Robbie?
I'm going to go with Ryan Hall.
Imagine my shock. Imagine my fucking shock.
By weird techniques. I don't know if he's going to finish or what, but weirdness will win Ryan Hall.
Topuria is going to knock him out. Topuria is a monster.
Fuck you, Lee.
Ian?
I think Topuria is going to probably get him out of there round 2, round 3 by knockout. I think that Ryan Hall will try, and he might be successful maybe in the first round, but I think Topuria is good enough to keep it on the feet. He lands big shots, and Ryan Hall is probably going to say, oh fuck, I can't get this guy down, and Topuria is going to probably, I'll say KO TKO round 3.
I think KO TKO round 2 for Topuria, to be honest. Look, Robbie's done. That's it. He's done.
He's gone.
He's had enough. I don't blame him. I mean, look, for me personally, like Ryan Hall's one of my favorite grapplers of all time, but we're talking about an elite prospect here, an elite prospect.
Topuria is nasty as well.
Yeah, and that's why you have to give all the credit to Ryan Hall for taking this fucking fight, man. Like, there's not too many guys that are lining up to fight Topuria, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm taking that. Right.
The spinning wheel kicks.
I'm going to run very quickly through these early prelims. We have Jennifer Maia versus Jessica Ai, which is probably the number 2 contender spot in that division. Amari Akhmeda versus Brad Tavares, which is fucking nuts that it's the 3rd fight on the card.
Yeah, it's a great fight.
It's a great fight. I think I'm heavy Brad Tavares in that fight, to be honest. And then we have Zhalgos Zamagilov, who's just a absolute fucking shithead, versus Jerome Rivera, and then Alan Amidovsky versus Hu Yazwang. Neither have a Wikipedia page, so we don't care about them. As always, we usually go for fight of the night, right? But I think we've all agreed that fight of the night is Niko Price versus Michel Periera. No?
Yeah.
The only thing, if McGregor and Poirier goes over 3 rounds, I think that probably will be given it. Hopefully that doesn't happen. If that doesn't happen, I think it's all good for Niko Price and Periera for sure.
Yeah, what will be given it and what it is might be different things when McGregor's on the card.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
Fucking excited for the main event, guys. It's a big turning curve.
Look at him, we've turned him.
We have to give a little bit of a promo. Like, this is like, we've been on a fantastic journey with Conor McGregor, and this is a big chapter in his story. Next Saturday night, lots of questions, lots of people doubting him. He's used that before in the past to be successful. Can he do it again? We're not too sure, but I'm very excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, just from my point, like, at the end of the day, regardless of whether McGregor is at the height of his powers or not, when Conor McGregor signs to fight, everyone fucking watches it. Doesn't matter if it's against Manan, Dustin Poirier, or anything. Everyone's going to tune in. The excitement will build. And as soon as you hear Conor McGregor's walkout tune and you see his face and the lights go down, doesn't matter where you are, Conor McGregor's fighting, right? And people will watch and people will be interested. I'd love to see him turn in a good performance. I think MMA and the UFC in general is just a better outfit when Conor McGregor is active and is available and is confident, right? So if he can be that and if he can do that, by God, we're in for a very interesting couple of years. If he doesn't, I feel like it's a very sad day for MMA. It's a very sad day for the UFC. But as you touched on, we're on one hell of a journey, and McGregor seems to have made the right positions in his camp and the right decisions within himself, moving away from his family, etc. If there's anyone that can come back from the brink, it's a special fighter like Conor McGregor.
Big time. Agreed.
Well, I guess that's it then.
I thought that was a very articulate ending. So
I'm too upset about your betrayal and disrespect of Ryan Hall to make any comments on McGregor.
By the way, Ryan, if you hear this, I absolutely fucking love you. So come to my house. I'll cook you dinner.
Go to your house and he'll hook you in the kitchen.
Yeah. I'd be absolutely fine with it. You know what I mean? I'd let it go as well. I just let it break. Fuck it. But yeah, look, lads, as always, it's been an absolute fucking pleasure. Roll on the fights, and I'll see you next time.